Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Haribo. Krishna and the gopis meet for the Rasa dance. This chapter describes how Lord Sri Krishna, intending to enjoy the Rasa dance, engaged in arguments and counter arguments with the gopis. Then there is a description of the beginning of the Rasa dance and the Lord's pastime of disappearing from the midst of the gopis. Remembering the promise he had made to the gopis when he had stolen their clothes, Lord Krishna employed his yoga maya potency and manifested within himself the desire to enjoy pastimes during an autumn night. Thus, he began to play his flute. When the gopis heard the flute sound, the impulses of Cupid were violently aroused within them. Oh boy, violently aroused within them. And they immediately abandoned all their household duties and hastily went to Krishna. All the gopis had purely spiritual bodies, but when some of the gopis' husbands and other family members stopped the young girls from going, Lord Krishna arranged for them to temporarily exhibit material bodies, which they then left at the sides of their husbands. In this way, they deceived their relatives and went off to the meet. They went off to meet Krishna. When the gopis came before Lord Krishna, he asked, "Why have you come? It is not good for you to travel to such a place in the dead of the night. For this forest is full of violent creatures. Your husbands and children will soon come searching after you to bring you home and engage you again in your household duties. After all, the prime religious duty of a woman is to serve her husband and children. For the respectable women in to, to consort with the paramour, with a paramour, is totally contemptible and sure to obstruct her progress to heaven. Moreover, one develops pure love for me not by physical proximity, but by hearing topics connected with me, by viewing my deity form in the temple, by meditating upon me, and by faithfully chanting my glories. Therefore, all of you would do best to return home. Oh boy. Well, the gopis were crestfallen to hear this, and after crying a little, they replied with a bit of anger. It is very unfair for you to reject young girls who have abandoned everything in their lives and come to you with the exclusive desire to serve you. By serving our husbands and children, we receive only uh, pain, whereas by serving you, the dearmost soul of all living beings, we will perfectly fulfill the true religious duty of the self. What woman will not deviate from her prescribed duties as soon as she hears your flute song and sees your form, which enchants the three worlds? Just as the Supreme Lord Vishnu protects the demigods, you destroy the unhappiness of the people of Vrindavan. Therefore, you should immediately relieve the torment we have felt because of separation from you. Wanting to please the gopis, Lord Krishna, who is always satisfied in himself, responded to their appeals by playing with them in various pastimes. But when this show of attention made them a little proud, he humbled them by suddenly disappearing from the arena of the rasa dance. See, as soon as you become a little bit puffed up, that's it. Krishna leaves. Text number 1. Shri Badarayana said, Shri Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, full in all opulences. Yet, upon seeing those autumn nights scented with blossoming jasmine flowers, he turned his mind toward loving affairs. To fulfill his purposes, he employed his internal potency. Purport. As we begin the famous narration of Lord Krishna's Rasa dance, a dance of love with beautiful young girls, questions will inevitably arise in the minds of ordinary people regarding the propriety of God's romantic dancing with many young girls in the middle of a full moon autumn night. In his description of the Lord's Rasa dance in Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Srila Prabhupada painstakingly explains the spiritual purity of these transcendental activities. Those advanced in the science of Krishna, the great teachers or acharyas, leave no doubt that Lord Krishna is full and satisfied in himself, free of all material desire, which is, after all, a sense of incompleteness or lack. Materialistic persons and impersonal philosophers stubbornly reject the bona fide explanation of Sri Krishna's transcendental nature. There is no reason to deny the beautiful reality of an absolute person able to perform absolute romantic activities, of which our so-called romances is merely a shadow or perverted reflection. The irrational insistence that the material activities cannot be a reflection of the perfect spiritual activities performed by God reflects the unimaginative emotional disposition of those who oppose the reality of Sri Krishna. this psychological disposition of the non devotees, which leads them to fervently deny the very existence of the absolute person, unfortunately boils down to what may be
Succinctly. Succinctly.
described as envy, since the overwhelming majority of the impersonal critics eagerly pursue their own romantic affairs, which they consider quite real and even spiritual. The actual supreme lover is Lord Krishna. The Vedanta Sutra begins by declaring that the absolute truth is the source of everything. And even Western philosophy was born in a somewhat awkward attempt at finding the original one behind the apparent many of material existence. Conjugal love, one of the most intense and demanding aspects of human existence, can hardly have nothing at all to do with supreme reality. In fact, the conjugal love experienced by human beings is a mere reflection of spiritual reality, in which the same love exists in an absolute, pristine state. Thus, it is clearly stated here that when Krishna decided to enjoy the romantic atmosphere of autumn, he resorted to his spiritual potency, Yogamayam Upasrita. The spiritual nature of Lord Krishna's conjugal affairs is a major theme in this section of the Srimad Bhagavatam. A woman is attractive because of the sweet sound of her voice, her beauty and gentleness, her enchanting fragrance and tenderness, and also because of her cleverness and skill in music and dance. The most attractive ladies of all are the young gopis of Vrindavan, who are Lord Krishna's internal potency. And this chapter tells how he enjoyed their brilliant feminine qualities, even though, as Srila Vishwanatha Chakravarti Thakur has mentioned, Lord Krishna was an 8-year-old boy when these events took place. Yeah, so he can't have any lusty desires with the kid. Ordinary people prefer God simply to be a witness of their romantic affairs. When a boy desires a girl or a girl desires a boy, sometimes they pray to God for their enjoyment. Such people are shocked and dismayed to find out that the Lord can enjoy his own loving affairs with his own transcendental senses. In truth, Sri Krishna is the original Cupid, and his exciting conjugal pastimes will be described in this section of the Bhagavatam. When Lord Krishna descends to the earth, his spiritual body seems to take birth and grow as he displays his variegated pastimes. The Lord could hardly allow his boyhood to pass without exhibiting the supreme loving affairs between a young boy and young girls. Thus, Vishwanath Chakravarti quotes Srila Rupa Goswami as follows. Kaisoram Safali Karoti Kalyan Kunje Viharam Hari. Lord Hari perfects his youth by arranging loving pastimes in the groves of the Vrindavana forest. Text number 2. The moon then rose, anointing the face of the western horizon with the reddish hue of his comforting rays, and thus dispelling the pain of all who watched him rise. The moon was like a beloved husband who returns after a long absence and adorns the face of his beloved wife with red kumkuma. Purport. Young Krishna engaged his internal potency, and she immediately created an exciting atmosphere for conjugal love. So young Krishna engaged his internal potency, and she immediately created an exciting atmosphere for conjugal love. Text number 3. Lord Krishna saw the unbroken disk of the full moon glowing with the red effulgence of newly applied vermilion, as if it were the face of the goddess of fortune. He also saw the Kumuda lotuses opening in response to the moon's presence, and the forest gently illumined by its rays. Thus the Lord began to play sweetly on his flute, attracting the minds of the beautiful-eyed gopis. I want to buy a flute. To look on
Yes,
proper
Maharaj.
flute. Not some junk flute, but a real good flute.
Yes.
Purport. The word jago in this verse indicates that Lord Krishna played songs on his flute, as confirmed in text 40 by the words Ka Stri Anga Te Kala Pad Ayata Venu Gita. The word Rama may indicate not only Lord Vishnu's consort, but also Srimati Radharani, the original goddess of fortune. Lord Krishna appeared in the dynasty of the moon god, and the moon plays a prominent role here in preparing for the Lord's entrance into the midst of the Rasa dance. Okay, this is exciting. Text 4. When the young women of Vrindavana heard Krishna's flute song, which arouses romantic feelings, their minds were captivated by the Lord. They went to where their lover waited, each unknown to the others, moving so quickly that their earrings swung back and forth. I must have big, long earrings. Purport. Apparently, each gopi went secretly, hoping to avoid advertising to her rivals the fact that young Krishna was in the mood for romantic affairs. Srila Vishwanatha Chakravarti poetically described the situation as follows. Quote, Krishna instigated a terrible act of thievery in Vrindavan when he played on his flute. The song of his flute entered through the ears of the gopis, into the inner treasure chamber of their hearts. That wonderful music stole all their most valuable possessions, their sobriety, shyness, fear, and discrimination. Uh, stole all of that, along with their very minds. And in a split second, this music delivered all these goods to Krishna. Now, each gopi went to beg the Lord to return to her personal property. Each beautiful young girl was thinking, I have to capture that great thief. And thus they went forward, each unknown to the others. Text number 5. Some of the gopis were milking cows when they heard Krishna's flute. They stopped milking and went off to meet him. Some left milk curdling on the stove, and others left cakes burning on the oven. Purport: the eagerness of these cowherd girls, so lovingly devoted to young Krishna, is shown here. Text 6 and 7. Some of them were getting dressed, feeding milk to their infants, or rendering personal service to their husbands. But they all gave up these duties and went to meet Krishna. Other gopis were taking their evening meals, washing themselves, putting on cosmetics, or applying kajal. To their eyes. That's a type of uh, black cosmetic. But all the gopis stopped these activities at once and, through their clothes and ornaments, were in complete disarray, rushed off to Krishna. Text number 8. Their husbands, fathers, brothers, and other relatives tried to stop them, but Krishna had already stolen their hearts, enchanted by the sound of his flute. They refused to turn back. Purport: by his divine grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Some of the young gopis were married, and their husbands tried to stop them. The unmarried girls had to deal with their fathers and brothers and other relatives. None of these relatives would have ordinarily allowed even the young girls' dead bodies to go alone into the forest at night. But Lord Krishna had already engaged his internal potency, and thus the entire romantic episode unfolded without interference. Hari Bol. Text 9. Some of the gopis, however, could not manage to get out of their houses, and instead they remained home with eyes closed, meditating upon him in pure love. Well, that's interesting. Throughout the 10th canto, Srila Vishwanatha Chakravarti Thakura gives elaborate poetic commentaries on Lord Krishna's pastimes. It is not always possible to include these extensive descriptions, but we will quote in its entirety his comments on this verse. It is our sincere recommendation to the learned Vaishnava community that a qualified devotee of the Lord present the entire commentary of Srila Vishwanatha Chakravarti on the 10th canto as a separate book, which will undoubtedly be appreciated by devotees and non-devotees alike. The Acharya comments on this verse are as follows. Quote, in this context, we will make our analysis according to the method described in Srila Rupa Goswami's Ujjvala Nilamani. There are two categories of gopis, the eternally perfect, the Nitya Siddhas, and those who have become perfect by practicing Bhakti Yoga, the Sadhana Siddhas. The Sadhana Siddhas are of two categories, those who belong to special groups and those who do not. And there are also two classes of the gopis belonging to special groups, namely the Shruti Haris, who come from the group of the personified Vedas, and the Rishikaris, who come from the group of sages who saw Lord Ramachandra in the Dandaka forest. This same fourfold categorization of the gopis is given in the Padma Purana. Gopyastu Shrutayogena Rishija Gopa Kanyaka Deva Kanyascha Rajendra Na Manusya Katan Shana. It is understood that some of the gopis are personified Vedic literatures, while others are reborn sages, daughters of cowherds, or demigod maidens. But by no means, my dear king, are any of them ordinary humans. Here we are informed that although the gopis appeared to be human, cowherd girls, they actually were not. Thus, the contention that they are mortals is refuted. Yeah, they're not going to die. Let's put it like that. The daughters of cowherds referred to here as Gopa Kanyas must be eternally perfect, since we never hear of them having executed any sadhana. Their apparent sadhana of worshipping goddess Katyayani in the role of gopis merely manifests their manner of playing like human beings. And the Bhagavatam narrates the account of this worship only to show how they had fully taken on the role of cowherd girls. That the Gopakanya gopis are actually Nitya Siddhas, eternally perfect devotees of the Lord, is established by a statement in Brahma Samhita 537. Anandachinmaya rasa pratibhavitavi, which proves that they are the Lord's spiritual pleasure potency. Similarly, we have the words of the Gautamiya Tantra, Hiladini Ya Mahashakti, further corroboration of their eternal perfection is that these gopis, being co-eternal with Lord Krishna, their lover, are mentioned along with him in the 18-syllable mantra, the 10-syllable mantra, and others, and also that the worship of these mantras and also the shrutis that present them have been in existence since beginningless time. Wow. The Devakandas, daughters of the demigods, who are mentioned in the verse beginning Sambhavas Tva Amara Striya, are explained in the Sri Ujjvala Nilamani as partial expansions of the gopis who are eternally perfect. That the Shrutikari gopis, the personified Vedas, are sadhana siddha is understood from the following words of their quoted of theirs quoted in the Brihad Vamana Purana. Kaldalpakoti lavanye swayi driste manam amsi na kamini bhavam asadya smara shubh danya samsaya yata tval loka vasenya kam tatvena gopika vajanti ramanam matva chikir sa janinas tata. Since we have seen your face, which possesses the beauty of millions of cupids, oh boy, millions of cupids, amazing. Our minds have become lusty after you like those of young girls, and we have forgotten all other allurements. We have developed the desire to act toward you as do the gopis who dwell on your transcendental planet and who manifest the nature of Cupid by worshiping you with the idea that you are their paramour. The Rishi Kari gopis are also sadhana siddha, as stated in Ujjvala Nilamani. Gopalo Pasaka Purvam Apraptabhishta Siddhaya. Previously, they were all Maharshis living in the Dandaka forest. We find evidence for this in the Padma Purana, Uttara Kanda. Jistva Raman Harim Tatra Bhaktam Aichan Suvigraham Te Sarve Stri Savam Apana Samud Bhutas Chagokudai Harim Samprapya Kamena Tato Mukta Babar Navat. This verse says that upon seeing Lord Ramachandra, the sages in the Dandaka forest desired to enjoy Lord Hari Krishna. In other words, the sight of Lord Rama's beauty reminded them of Lord Hari, Gopala, their personal object of worship, and they then wanted to enjoy with him. But out of embarrassment, they did not act on that desire. Whereupon Lord Rama, who was like a desire, one second, desire tree, gave his mercy to them, even though they had not voiced their request. Thus, their desire was fulfilled, as stated by the words beginning Te Sarve. By means of their lusty attraction, they became freed from the ocean of material existence, the cycle of birth and death, and coincidentally, they got the association of Hari in conjugal love. Wow, that's wonderful. In the present verse, the Bhagavatam we understand that it was the gopis who had children who were kept forcibly at home. This fact is clear from verses yet to come. Matara Pitara Putra, Bhagavatam 10:29-20. Yat Pati Apatya Suhritam Anuvrittir Anga, Bhagavatam 10:29-32. And Pati Sutan Vanya Varatir Vand Pavan, Bhagavatam 10:31.16. In his comments on the 10th canto, Srila Kavi Karnapurna Goswami mentions this fact. Without trying to repeat all his thoughts on this verse, we will give the gist of his purport. Wow. Okay. Now, the gist. Upon seeing the personal form of Lord Sri Ramachandra, the sages who were worshippers of Lord Gopala immediately became elevated to the mature platform of spontaneous devotion, automatically reaching the stages of firm faith, attraction, and attachment. But they had not yet completely freed themselves of all material contamination. Therefore, she, Yoga Maya Devi, arranged for them to take birth from the wombs of gopis and become cowherd girls. By associating with the eternally perfect gopis, some of these new gopis fully manifested Purva Raga, loving attraction for Krishna, as soon as they reached puberty. This kind of attraction develops even before one meets the beloveds. When these new gopis got the direct audience of Krishna and physically associated with him, all their remaining contamination became burned up, and they achieved the advanced stages of prema, sneha, and so on. Even though they were in the company of their captors, by the power of Yogamaya, the gopis remained unsullied by sexual contact with them. Rather, they were situated in purely spiritual bodies that Krishna enjoyed. Well, I'm glad about that. On the night they heard the sound of Krishna's flute, their husbands tried to stop them, but by the merciful assistance of Yogamaya, the sadhana Siddha gopis were able to go forth to their beloved together with the Nitya Siddha gopis. Other gopis, however, because of not getting the good fortune of associating with the Nitya Siddha gopis and other advanced gopis, had not achieved the stage of prema, and so their contamination was not completely burned away. They entered the company of their cowherd husbands, and after sexual union with them, gave birth to children. But a short time later, even these gopis developed their purva raga by hankering intensely for the physical association of Krishna, a hankering they acquired by associating with the advanced gopis, becoming worthy recipients of the mercy of the perfected gopis. They assumed transcendental bodies fit to be enjoyed by Krishna. And when Yogamaya failed to help them overcome their husbands' attempts to keep them from going out, they felt themselves cast into the worst calamity. viewing their husbands, brothers, fathers, and other family members as enemies. Oh boy. They came close to dying. Lust as other women might remember their mothers or other relatives at the time of death. These gopis remembered the sole friend of their very life, Krishna, as stated in the present verse of the Bhagavatam, beginning with the word antar. It is implied that those ladies were not able to exit because they were held back by their husbands, who were standing before them with sticks, with sticks in their hands, scolding them. Although these gopis were perpetually absorbed in love for Krishna, at that particular time they meditated upon him and cried out within, "Alas, alas, O only friend of our life, O ocean of the artistic skills of Vrindavana forest, please let us become your girlfriends in some future life, because at this time we cannot see your lotus-like face with our eyes. So be it. We shall look upon you with our minds," each of them lamenting to herself in this way. The gopis stood with their eyes shut and meditated deeply upon him. Text 10 and 11. For those gopis who could not go to see Krishna, intolerable separation from their beloved caused an intense agony that burned away all impious karma. Wow, that's amazing. By meditating upon him, they realized his embrace, and the ecstasy they then felt exhausted their material piety. Although Lord Krishna is the Supreme Soul, these girls simply thought of him as their male lover and associated with him in that intimate mood. Thus, their karmic bondage was nullified and they abandoned their gross material bodies. Wow. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti comments upon this verse as follows. Here, Sukadeva Goswami speaks in a peculiar way. He presents the intimate object the gopis attain as if it were an external idea, thus keeping its true nature secret from others, while at the same time he reveals to the confidential devotees well versed in the scientific conclusions of devotional service the internal meaning that is his real purport. Thus, to outsiders, Sukadeva says that Krishna gave the gopis liberation, but to the confidential hearers, Sukadeva reveals that when the gopis experienced separation from their beloved, arose in them both immeasurable unhappiness and immeasurable happiness, and that they gradually achieved their desired goal. Thus, the verse can be understood as follows. Because of their intolerable separation from their beloved, the gopis felt terrible agony, by which they caused all inauspicious things to tremble. In other words, when people in general hear of the gopis' extreme agony and separation from their beloved, they abandon thousands of inauspicious things. things even as fearsome as the subterranean fires of millions of universes, or the powerful poison swallowed by Lord Shiva. Whoa. Oh. More specifically, those who hear the gopis' love in separation give up their terrible false ego and, thinking themselves defeated, are shaken. When the gopis meditated on Lord Achyuta, he became manifest and personally came to them, and they experienced great joy by embracing his body, which was full of transcendental love for them. The gopis also experienced great joy by exhibiting personal characteristics and a sense of identification appropriate to such love. That joy made all their good fortune, both material and spiritual, seem paltry by comparison. Paltry means insignificant by comparison. The implication is that when other persons see how happy the gopis became upon embracing Krishna when he manifested himself directly before them, these other persons feel that thousands of so called auspicious objects are insignificant by comparison, including all the sense gratificatory pleasures found in millions of universes and even the super sensory pleasure of spiritual bliss, Brahmananda. Thus, hearing of the gopis' distress and the joy that arose, respectively, out of their separation from the Supreme Lord and their union with Him, anyone can get rid of all the reactions of his past activities, both sinful and pious. Vaishnavas certainly do not think that sinful and pious reactions can be destroyed only by being lived out, since, after all, neither separation from the Supreme Lord nor direct association with Him are in the category of karma. Karma. This kind of elimination of karmic reactions occurs in the stage of bhajana for those who have come to the level of anartha nivriti. And thus, the gopis thought of Krishna, the Paramatma, or supreme worthy object of all love, as their paramour, even though such a concept is ordinarily contemptible. The gopis realized Krishna in an even further sense than did Rukmini and his other queens, who thought of him most respectfully as their husband. That thinking of the Lord as one's paramour is superior to thinking of him as one's husband is proved by the fact that unbridled pure love is superior to domesticated love. Wow. This idea is borne out by the following words of Sri Uddhava. Ya dustyacham swajanam aryapatam cha hitva. These ladies of Raja abandoned their families and their advanced religious principles, even though to do so is very difficult. Bhagavatam 10, 47, 61. In his pastimes on earth, Krishna often turns the most lowly things into most elevated. As Bhisma stated, Krishna's pastime of acting as Arjuna's chariot driver was even more elevated than the pastimes in which he acted as a mighty king of kings. Vijaya Rata Kutumba Ata Totre Trita Haya Rasmini Touch Chirishksaniye. I concentrate upon the chariot driver of Arjuna, who stood with a whip in his right hand and a bridle rope in his left, and who was very careful to protect Arjuna's chariot by all means. Bhagavatam 1.9.39. Similarly, in the Lord's appearance as Krishna, we see that the normally inferior conjugal rasa becomes better than the normally superior mode of Santa rasa, as also the attitude of loving a paramour becomes superior to loving exchange between legitimate spouses. And lowly gunja necklaces, red oxide paste, and peacock feathers become better than the most excellent jeweled ornaments. But it may be objected, it is not fitting for the Supreme Lord to sport with women whose bodies have already been enjoyed by other men. This objection is replied to by the words beginning Jahu. The word Jeham is used here in the singular form to indicate unity of category, even though the gopis are many. Some authorities say that by the power of Yogamaya, these gopis' bodies disappeared in a way no one noticed. But other authorities say that the body referred to in this context is the inferior body, composed of the modes of material nature. Thus, by the prominence of the adjective gunamayam, it is understood that before the gopis heard the sound of Krishna's flute, their bodies had been twofold, material and spiritual. And upon hearing the flute, they gave up the material bodies which their husbands had enjoyed. We may analyze this as follows. Quote, when devotees begin prosecuting devotional service in accordance with the instructions of a bona fide spiritual master, they engage their ears and other senses in pure devotion by hearing of the Lord, chanting his glories, remembering him, offering obeisances to him, giving him personal attendance, and so forth. Thus, the devotees make the Lord's transcendental qualities the objects of their senses. As stated by the Lord himself, Nirguno Mad Apasraya, Bhagavatam 11:25-26. In this way, the devotee's body transcend the material modes. Yet sometimes the devotees may take as their sense objects mundane sound, and so on. And that is material. Thus, a devotee's body can have two aspects, transcendental and material, according to one's level of devotional service. To that degree, the transcendental aspects of one's body become prominent and the material aspects diminish. This transformation is described in the following verses from the Bhagavatam 11.2.42. Bhakti Parisanubhavo Viraktir Anyatra Chaisa Trika Ekakala Prapadyaman Nafsya Yata Snata Sius Tusti Pusti Sud Apayo Nu Gasam. Devotion, direct experience of the Supreme Lord, and detachment from other things. These three occur simultaneously for one who has taken shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In the same way that pleasure nourishment, and relief from hunger come simultaneously and increasingly with each bite for a person engaged in eating. When one achieves totally pure love of God, the material portions of the body disappear and the body becomes completely spiritual. Nonetheless, so as not to disturb the false opinions of atheists, and so as to protect the confidentiality of devotional service, the Supreme Lord usually has his illusory energy exhibit the demise of the gross body. An example of this is the disappearance of the yada during the Moshava Lila. Sometimes, however, to proclaim the excellence of Bhakti Yoga, Krishna will allow a devotee to go back to Godhead in his self-same body, as in the case of Dhruva Maharaj. We can cite evidence for this point from the 25th chapter of the 11th canto, text 32, Ye neme nirichita somya guna jivena chita ja bhakti yogena man anisto mad bhavaya prapadyate. A living entity who conquers the modes of material nature, which are manifested from the mind, can dedicate himself to me, Krishna, by the process of devotional service, and thus attain pure love for me. Here, the Lord states that the defeat and destruction of that which is composed of the modes of material nature can be brought about only by the process of devotional service. Therefore, what we should understand from the present verse of the Bhagavatam is that the gopis who could not go to see Krishna had their inauspicious material bodies removed or burned up, while their auspicious spiritual bodies, far from being destroyed, simply grew more prominent because of the ecstasy the gopis felt by embracing Krishna in meditation. Thus, their bondage was completely destroyed. By the help of Yoga Maya, they got free from ignorance, also from the prohibitions of their husbands and other relatives. We should not make the mistake of explaining this falling away of the gopis' bodies as being a result of their dying. As the Lord himself states, Ya Maya Kridata Ratriyam Vanesmin Raja Astita Alabda Rasa Kalyano Mapur Mad Virya Chinkaya. Some of those all auspicious gopis could not directly join me in enjoying the rasa dance on that night in this Vrindavana forest. Yet still they achieved my association by remembering my transcendental pastime. By using the word kalyana in this verse, the Lord implies even though these gopis wanted to give up their bodies because of their husband's prohibitions and the torment of separation from me, for them to die at the very beginning of the most auspicious festival of the rasa dance would have been displeasing to me and thus inauspicious. So they did not die. Oh, well, that's good. More evidence that the gopis who were prevented from going to see Krishna did not physically die is provided by a statement of Sri Sukadeva's ladder in this canto. 10:47:38. Ta uchur urdhvaha vam kritas tat sande sagata smriti. Then they, the gopis, replied to Uddhava, feeling satisfied because his message had reminded them of Krishna. Here we understand that the gopis speaking to Uddhava were the ones who had not had the chance to participate directly in the rasa dance because of being held captive in their home. Thus, the conclusion is that they gave up their material bodies without dying, parched by the intense heat of separation. Their material bodies gave up their materiality and became purely spiritual, just like the bodies of such great devotees as Dhruva Maharaj. This is the meaning of the gopis giving up their bodies. The following analogy illustrates the statuses of the various gopis. By observing 7 or 8 ripe mangoes on a tree, we can ascertain that all the fruits on the tree are ripe. Then we can pick them all and bring them home, where in due course the sun's rays and other agents will make them fine looking, fragrant, and delicious, fit to be offered to the king for his enjoyment. When the time comes for the king to take his meal, a discriminating servant can choose those fruits ready to offer him. From the appearance of the fruits, the servant can tell which are ripe in the middle, but still raw on the outside, and thus not yet fit for the king. By application of a special heating process, these remaining fruits will become ripe in 2 or 3 days, and then they too will be ready to offer to the king. Similarly, among the Muni Kari gopis who took birth in Gokula, those who completely gave up the materiality of their bodies and very early in life achieved purely spiritual bodies were able to remain untouched by any other man. Thus, Yogamaya allowed them to join the Nitya Siddha and other advanced gopis when they went to meet Krishna. Other Munikari gopis still retain some connection with the external material body, but even they, after being parched by the heat of separation from Sri Krishna, gave up the materiality of their bodies and assumed perfectly transcendental bodies, purified of all taint of contact with other men. On the night of the rasa dance, Yogamaya sent some of these gopis out behind those who had already gone out. Others, who Yogamaya saw still had a slight amount of contamination, she kept back to further purify with the heat of separation, and then she sent them out on some other night. Wow, this is a very, very uh, deep explanation. After enjoying the pleasures of the rasa dance and other pastimes with Krishna, the Muni Kari gopis who had participated went back to their homes when the night was over, as did the Nitya Siddha and other advanced gopis. But now Yogamaya protected these Munikari gopis from the material association of their husbands. In other words, these gopis were devoid of any selfish attachment for husband, children, and so on. Since these gopis were thoroughly immersed in the great ocean of love for Krishna, their breasts dried up so that they could not feed their infants. and to their family members they appeared as if haunted by ghosts. In conclusion, it is not unseemly that the gopis, who were previously in material association, joined in the rasa dance. Some authorities, however, maintain that the gopis who were kept back in their houses did not have children. According to them, whenever such words as apatya, children, are used in verses yet to come, these words refer to the children of co-wives who adopt children or to nephews and nieces. Okay. What time is it? I think our time is up.
Yes, Maharaj.
All right. Well, thank you very much, my dear devotees. And our takeaway for today. After enjoying the pleasures of the rasa dance and other pastimes with Krishna, the Muni Kari gopis who had participated went back to their homes when the night was over, as did the Nityasiddha and other advanced gopis. But now Yogamaya protected these Muni Kari gopis from the material association of their husbands. In other words, the husbands were not able to touch them. In other words, these gopis were devoid of any selfish attachment for husband, children, and so on. Since these gopis were thoroughly immersed in the great ocean of love for Krishna, their breasts dried up so that they could not feed their infants. And to their family members, they appeared as if haunted by ghosts. In conclusion, it is not unseemly that the gopis who were previously in material association joined in the rasa dance. Some authorities, however, maintain that the gopis who were kept back in their houses did not have children. According to them, whenever such words as apatya, children, are used in verses yet to come, these words refer to the children of co-wives, to adopted children, or to nephews and nieces. Okay. Thank you very much for that explanation. All glories to Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. We'll stop right there and pick up text 12 tomorrow. All glories to Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. This is all very, very profound knowledge here. And we're very fortunate to be able to hear this. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jai Shri Prabhupada Ki Jai.